nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to have a moment of silence for the victims of 9/11. Okay, thank you. Tonight, we have some guests of the board, and our first guest is Alan Scott and Jennifer Flad from the IDA, and they have a very brief presentation.
Well, what does he mean by that? Thank you. It was going to be very brief, and I want to thank you very much for having the spread available for us to eat tonight. That might take a little more time.
Heard you were coming.
Anyway, thank you very much, Ed, and the town board for inviting us out this evening to talk to you about the IDA and give you an up-to-date information with respect to different projects that we're working on. First, I'd like to introduce Jennifer Wall-Flad, who recently was a new addition to the IDA staff over in Ferndale. As everyone knows, Jennifer is from these parts, and she's an excellent addition to the staff of the IDA. Her title at the IDA will be Vice President of Government Affairs and Business Development, so I wanted to bring her with us tonight so you could get an idea of who you might be contacting over at the IDA should you need to do that. Let me just also briefly talk about something. From time to time, we get some criticism about IDA activities, and from time to time you read in the paper about IDAs in different parts of Orange County and New York State and various difficulties they're having in conducting business. And I just want to tell you that we recently had a complete audit done by New York State Department of Audit, and we passed the audit with flying colors. As a matter of fact, one of their closing remarks was continue to do the good work you're doing. So we're in great standing, and the IDA is functioning on all cylinders, and I just wanted to let you know about that. So at this point in time, I'd like to ask Jennifer to talk about two recent grants, RBOG grants, that we've gotten through the IDA that you should be very interested in. So Jennifer, if you would.
Thank you. So we recently did hear that we've been awarded a couple of federal grants for a couple of projects that we're working on. The first is for the red meat facility in Liberty. We were informed in June that USDA has awarded us a $50,000 grant. It's called a Rural Business Opportunity Grant, and that's to provide technical assistance and training for us as we develop the red meat facility. What's exciting about that is that's that last piece of grant funding that we've been seeking. So we now have the project fully funded, and we're moving forward really on two fronts with the red meat facility. The first is we're moving forward with site work. We've got an approved site plan. We've got a contractor to undertake the site work, so we'll be moving forward with that soon. On the other track, we've convened a group of experts to help us identify what we want to look for in an operator for the facility. The IDA will own the red meat facility, and we will lease it to an operator. So the quality and experience of that operator is of utmost importance in order for the business to succeed. So we've got a group of farmers and agency folks from representing Cornell Cooperative Extension, other agencies and organizations to help us make sure that we can seek and find the highest quality operator possible. So the red meat facility is moving forward. We're excited about it, and we're looking forward to developments in the near future.
And I'll add that site work for the red meat facility is being done by a local Sullivan County contractor, that's Sullivan Structures, and the IDA has done whatever we can possibly do to support our local businesses and local people in terms of employing them in different projects. Go ahead, Jim.
Thanks. The other project that we've been working on is the development of a local food hub. Essentially what the IDA is looking to do is to construct a very locally focused food aggregation and distribution facility. The idea is we hear a lot from local producers and also local restaurants and shops that it's very hard for them to leave their place of business to go either pick up food from the farms, pick up produce and other farm products, or on the farmer's end, it's hard for them to get off the farm to go and make deliveries to local shops and restaurants. And so for these small businesses, the development of a facility here in Sullivan County that will make that transportation link and connect the producers to the consumers will save them time and money and ultimately make all their businesses more viable. So the IDA has been working this year to develop a food hub here in Sullivan County, and we have to date received 2 grants from USDA to develop that. Early in the spring, we received a USDA Rural Business Enterprise grant for a little over $200,000 to purchase equipment for the food hub. And then very early in the summer, we received a Rural Business Opportunity Grant from USDA as well to help us with technical assistance with business planning for that facility. So what remains now is we have an application into New York State for grant funding to actually construct, to purchase and construct a site for the facility. So we won't know until December about that grant, but we're continuing with planning and putting together collaborations to help make the food hub a reality. So that's another exciting project. You hear a lot about food hubs in the press these days, and we think that a small scale hub can really go a long way to making our businesses more viable.
Any questions?
Any idea where that might be located? Which part of the county?
We don't have a site identified yet, and we don't have a site locked in yet. We have some ideas. It is quite likely that it'll be kind of in the eastern part of the county. We're working with an existing distributor who is located closer to the Hudson Valley, and so for them to be closer to their headquarters would be ideal. We've had folks, of course, say, well, central to the county would be great, or in the western part of the county where the farms are located. So it's really up to the operator to figure out what's going to work logistically best for them and make the most sense economically for them and for the businesses that they serve.
How large a site would be required for that?
I think we have in mind 5 to 7 acres. We don't need a very big site. We're talking about a pretty simple metal building, coolers and racking and such, loading docks. So we don't need a whole lot of space.
What is the time frame on this, the food hub?
The food hub, it depends a lot on if we get the funding from the state.
And it depends also if they're on time in terms of letting us know about the funding.
Right.
You know, it's always hard to look at, we've been talking about the red meat facility for a number of years, so, you know, we continue.
Great idea, but it needs to happen.
Well, I hear you, and you don't have to educate us with respect to our desire to want it to happen. I mean, we're working really hard
We
on
don't
it.
have any set time frame at this point?
Well, the only set time frame that we do have is that the state is supposed to let us know about our consolidated funding application in the end of December, and that will enable us to give you a schedule with respect to that. Understanding that if we don't receive the funding application from the state, it's going to take a little bit more time to accomplish. But we already have 2 RBOG grants in hand and already approved for that purpose. So,
Would it require a totally new facility structure, or there's lots of underused buildings and sites in the county that, if, you know.
it wouldn't require a totally new
Yeah.
structure.
So are you also including in your search existing buildings?
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so the other thing I just wanted to talk about briefly was
I used your airtime, Alan.
was that I just want to remind you, the board and everyone here, that there are various loans that are available through the IDA, and we do have a fair amount of funds available to put out there in the system. And these revolving loan funds are low interest. There's some, in some cases, depending on your project, there's technical assistance grants that are incorporated in our revolving loan funds. And we encourage you to let your people know about this. And all these revolving loan funds, Mr. Bodenstein, all these revolving loan funds are basically to encourage contribution to our economy and to retain or create new employment. So those are some of the provisions with respect to that. Okay, Jennifer, would you like to get a hot dog before we leave? Oh, I'm sorry. And I don't mean to be funny. I just.
On what you call a red meat facility, which is really a slaughterhouse, how much of a need for, how much of a call for it is there in this county? Because I know I was talking to a cattle dealer a while back, brings his cattle over someplace over Pennsylvania there, and he was saying if that place doesn't have 800 animals to slaughter a day, he's taking a day off. So is there that much call for it?
We don't have the capacity to slaughter that many animals over at the red meat facility. It's a 5,000 square foot facility over there.
Yeah.
But there is call for it, let me tell you. We hear it from a lot of the people across Sullivan County with respect to the use of that. And
Well, what I'm getting at is to get somebody in there to run it, to take it over. They're going to need some volume to make it worth their while. This is what kind of I'm getting at.
And one of the next stages of the red meat facility is to go out to an RFP with respect to finding an operator to operate that red meat facility too, Al. It's very important, thank you.
And there is a, what's his name, former cooperative extension agent, Jerry Skoda did a feasibility study, and it showed quite a need, as I recall.
For the red meat facility, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it?
Man.
You're kidding.
You coached me 15 minutes. Ed, of course, is a very valued member of the IDA. He's done a great job on the IDA board for many, many years. And hopefully he'll be doing it for many, many more years. Thank you very much for inviting us
Thank you
over.
so
tonight.
much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Our next guest of the board is David Bodenstein. I'm glad you made it.
He needs a towel.
So,
I know David's going to need
But
something
he's
to
gonna
eat,
get his
too.
chance. Yeah, I look like it, don't I?
Dave
My-
is president of Mike Price Insurance, and he's asked for a few minutes to speak.
I won't take as long as Alan Scott, and I'm not even sure how long this goes. And by the way, I bought money with me.
Good man.
I really only will take a couple of minutes. It was quite a while ago. I'm not sure anybody here was on the board when the town first started with NYMER, who is your insurer. That's the New York State Municipal Insurance Reciprocal. And as part of that process, and I've explained this before a few times, I know when we did the insurance renewals, the town paid a capital contribution because of the fact that it is a reciprocal. This reciprocal is owned by the policyholders or shareholders. So my representative from NYMER was down not that long ago, a month or so ago, because at the annual meeting they sort of did a nice thing again. So I'll quickly read this letter. In 2008, the NYMER Board of Governors, made up of 13 local government officials from across the state, decided to initiate a program by which NYMER would return the capital contribution made by each member when joining NYMER. This distribution demonstrated the strength of NYMER, which is the largest and most successful example of a municipal corporation anywhere in the state of New York. From 2008 to 2012, NYMER returned over $9 million to its members. That was your original capital contribution that you made. They did it over the last 4 years. At NYMER's 2013 annual meeting, the Board of Governors elected to continue with the return of the capital program for the next 2 years by returning the interest on the original capital contribution. For most members, this means that NYMER will have returned all of your municipality's initial capital investment, as well as the interest earned on that capital. These upcoming interest distributions have been made possible due to the dedication and loyalty of our membership over the past 20 years. The town of Delaware received an original capitalization distribution of $6,619.03. Over each of the next 2 years upon renewal, you will receive an interest distribution of $886, which is the check that I have for you this evening. So, on behalf of Mike Price Insurance and NYMER, we'd like to thank you for being loyal customers. In addition to that, NYMER has partnered with the Veterans Outreach Center of Rochester in sourcing flags, and they're pleased to support their mission to assist the many brave men and women who have served the country in the armed services. So they've also distributing some flags, which I will leave with you tonight, although the box is a tad wet. So, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Your check, your flag.
Thank you.
I did it less
It
than
happens
this,
that
Johnny.
we got a bunch, we're in the.
We could use that.
Yeah, we're gonna use this pretty quickly.
Thanks again. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
Before I ask for acceptance of the minutes, I just want to also note, I don't know if everybody's aware of the fact that we have another guest of the board, John Woolman, who will be speaking at the end of the meeting, and he's brought goodies. So,
So we have to stay to the end of the
absolutely, absolutely.
You catch on very rapidly.
It's called
So
captive audience.
can I get a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
John, a second?
Second.
Al, second. Okay, now reports, Tess, you're up.
Okay, quick tonight. August receipts total $3,556 with $35.29.50 turned over to the supervisor. Of that, $3,052 was building fees. Public health is scheduling flu clinics, and they've cut it down to 7 clinics rather than 13, mainly because people are getting their shots elsewhere. But we're one of the lucky towns to host one. So I always hold it for Delaware and Fremont together, but this year we're probably gonna have people from Coshocton, Calhoun, and Tustin. It's set for October 15th from 9 to noon at the youth center. It's different this year. They're only accepting Medicare Part B. Anybody with private insurance is supposed to go to their doctor or pharmacy or wherever. For people, seniors with managed Medicare and people with no insurance, there's a $25 fee. The managed Medicare people get it reimbursed through their carrier, and the pneumonia vaccine will not be offered this year. So it's a little bit different. I don't know what the turnout's gonna be. Average, I don't know, I used to get 85 people, now I think we have 25. So we'll see what happens in the other towns. So that's my report.
Okay. Bill, Superintendent of Highways.
Everything on the highway department is fine. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer. You got a question? No.
I have a question. It's not a complaint, just curious about the length of time it's taking to do the bridge, which is fine with me, but just curious about why.
Really, I don't know, that's a county.
Oh, that's a county.
County. It's county. Actually, all the bridges are county bridges.
Right.
Or state or county, you know, the county doesn't own it.
The town doesn't own any bridges.
Howard, you're up. Building inspector.
No problems. Building continues to be pretty good. I'm issuing another building permit Friday for another house, so that'll be 6 new homes this year. So, good news for the town. And other than that, it's the normal, small jobs, renovations, whatever, but it's busy. It's, I hear, yeah, better than
6 new
last year.
homes. That's it?
Yes.
Okay, the next report will be our assessor's report.
Yes, hi. Last night I attended the UDC meeting regarding our TAG application, the technical assistance grant that was for incorporating the archives boxes. And I gave the presentation, explained what we were going to do, and we have to wait and see now. The amount of applicants for the grants, the amount they were seeking exceeds the amount of money available. so I don't know exactly what our chances are, but I gave it a try. Regarding data collection, that's continuing. I think they're finishing up River Road this week, and pretty much from Hortonville west to the river, that's almost completely done as far as the residential properties. We haven't done commercial yet, so that's going well, and not too much beside that.
Okay, thank you. The next is grants coordinator. I have a note from Kara, who cannot be here. I'm gonna read it, okay? Now, her first part of her note is in regard to the drilling commission, we were gonna talk about in my report, but I'll go over that now. And the last time the drilling commission met was 5/14. The group continued to summarize the economic effects on small-town economies. It was expressed by the group that this would best be accomplished by paying a visit to a town that is actively drilling. The group did locate the name and number of the chair of a gas drilling commission in Towanda County, Bradford County, PA. I don't know how it could be Towanda, two counties, I'm not sure.
City.
Oh, Towanda is the town, okay. The group was to pursue a list of questions for this commission to be reviewed at the June meeting. The commission was to pursue visiting an active drill and compressor station. Unfortunately, this was put on hold because Craig had to step down from the chair due to time constraints, and the group lacks adequate membership to complete the tasks at hand. We can go back to that in a minute if you'd like, but just let me finish her. You may also mention that the town applied for an $80,000 grant with the New York State Waterfront Revitalization to match set-aside funds from the railroad to renovate the crossing, remove abandoned rail, and increase the size and repave the municipal lot. I also received a cultural heritage grant for the Business Association, which will pay for marketing brochures and stickers, which was $600. If you have any questions, please let me know. Since I was going to talk about the drilling commission report, I also talked to her about this. I know that some people had questions. I think, Steve, you asked for a report. I think a couple of things happened. First of all, they need 2 more members. Craig did not resign, but because this is his really busy season, he has some time constraints. So those 2 items are causing the problem. The other thing I think that's happened is I think when originally there was a real sense of urgency, which they don't feel is real. There's no real sense of urgency to get something done in 6 months. So I think those are the 2 reasons, or 3 reasons, why the report is limited. The town board, and I've mentioned to everybody here at different times, that we are actively looking for a couple of other members. We're seeking balance, and we want to make sure that whoever gets put on there is objective. So, other than that, I have nothing else to report regarding the drilling commission. Next item on the agenda is the Calhoun Creek Park Committee. Is anybody here?
No.
Okay. I don't know that there is anything. You know of anything? They had their last concert. They had their last concert.
It was pretty well attended.
Was it?
Yeah, it wasn't the heaviest, but it was pretty good. And they tried a jazz group as opposed to, it's all rock and roll usually. I thought the jazz group was really good, actually. So I'm going to encourage them to do that again. Just try different things. But, remember the theme this year was to try to get out as much local talent as possible.
Right.
Kind of bringing people in, from far away. And I thought that was pretty successful.
What's your attendance usually? About? Guesstimate.
I think there were probably 50 that night. I think the heaviest night was one I didn't get to, but they mentioned at least 100.
Okay.
So it ranges in that.
Okay, so that's
People come and go.
pretty good turnout.
Usually 2 bands. It starts at 8. So sometimes if you bring the kids, you want to listen to the first band and then leave. Other people just come in later and for the second band.
Ed, something that I think, just a note of interest, the library had an opening on Saturday for their addition, and the second floor of the building is now ready for use, and I think they're starting computer classes there today, in fact. But the whole project came out really well. It's a nice addition. And for those of you who maybe never rode a 2-story elevator, there's one there.
It's really beautiful up there, though.
Yeah.
Okay, next item is UDC rep. Harold, you're up.
Okay. The water in the reservoirs is still above the median line, so it's still quite high, which is kind of good, but we could use more rain in the ground rather than just in the thing. Interestingly enough, the total capacity as of the 6th, which was Friday, was 85.1%, and that includes Cannonville, which was 86.4, Papacton was 85.4, and Neversink was 80.8. And but if you relate that to the actual capacity, it's interesting. At 86.4%, Cannonsville has 82.7 billion gallons. Papacton is 85.4%, which is a little less storage, capacity storage, but it has 119.6 billion gallons. So Papacton is far larger than Cannonsville. And Neversink, it's interesting, was at 80.2%, and that is only 28.2 billion gallons. So it's really interesting to see the difference.
Weren't those all in the 90s last month?
Yeah, well, they were higher, but as you see, it has come down. If you look at this red line and the line below it, you see they both have come down. So they've lost that. That probably represents what you're thinking of the 90s to where we are now. But it's still above, we're still above the median as far as that goes. Renee, I want to thank you for representing the town at the UDC board. You did an excellent job. I appreciate that. And she had mentioned that there was more requests for funds than there was money available. The amounts that they had requested were about $37,000. It was higher than that, but it wasn't 38. And the amount of money we had to give out was $25,000. So there had to be some cuts. I think everybody was funded, and yes, we were funded. We didn't get all we wanted, but we were funded. So that project should be going on for those archives, for our records, which is a good thing. One of the things that I've been on the UDC board quite a few years now, and I have watched and I have seen the financial difficulties that they're going through, and it's even expanded now that the sequestration has hit the Park Service, so we get our funds through the Park Service, so we had to take a little bit of cut, wasn't much. But what is so frustrating is the federal government is the real funder of the UDC. They fund us to the tune of roughly $300,000 a year. It's cut back down now a little bit. But it's been that amount of money for 25 years. So our budget has been static for income for 25 years. And what really upsets me after all this time, when you look at the original agreements that were signed by the feds and by the state of New York and the state of Pennsylvania, they all said they would fund, and the federal government has done so. New York State said they would give $100,000 a year. Now, if you multiply $100,000 times 25, that's a lot of money, and we didn't get a dime. Pennsylvania said they would do the same thing. They didn't. So figure that amount of money. It's $500,000. Never got a dime of it. So it upsets me because all of those things should have been fully funded, if not more. But we don't have the funds. And it upsets me. One good thing is there are people who are stepping in, or organizations and different things that do step in and help the municipalities outside of what the UDC can do as far as TAG grants are concerned. There are some economic development, they're looking for some economic things about tourism and the use of the river. And it isn't just for fishermen, it includes canoeists and boaters and swimmers and whoever wants to use the river. They're doing a large economic study in the town of Hancock, and that's being helped by the IDA of Orange County. Delaware County, excuse me, yeah, Delaware County. And their project that they put forth was $17,000. That was a lot of money. They requested $7 from us, but it's interesting to know that the Millennium Pipeline has pushed in a lot of money into that to help for that thing, for the recreation of the river. And I thought that was kind of interesting. I hadn't heard that something like that was being done. So that was a good thing to see that happen. Lumberland is going to try to count people as they come into the area. I don't know how they're going to do this. How many people come in? I don't know. What do you do? Stop cars and say, are you just driving through? Or are you going to go swimming or something? You know, I don't know how they do it. But the Park Service for years has been ticking off, you know, with their little counter, people who come into their sections where people come in to visit and so forth. But obviously, there's a lot more people who use the river, and they'd like to try to get a handle on it. So that's basically my report. Anyone have any questions? That's it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. The next is my report. I just wanted to say this is September. We're working on the budgets from all the departments. We have, in fact, received all but one. And which they're not late. We have this month to work on it. So, and we'll be having budget workshops as soon as we consolidate all these things. I'm not sure if I should talk about those exemptions again for, we had at the last board meeting we talked about the star exemption limit of 23, what is it, 23,000, I think I have it here.
The senior citizen agent exemption.
23,200, which hasn't changed since 1995.
Well, 2003, 2000.
No, I thought it was,
That's what I thought. I faxed.
Or 1998, excuse me.
Well, I faxed something to you yesterday. I don't know if you got it.
Oh, I didn't get that.
But okay. I found a memo from 2003. That was the last time.
And it was raised?
Yeah, so it was 10 years ago.
So, we're Renee, and rightly so, she says, maybe it's time we thought about increasing that exemption. We talked about this at the last meeting. Since then, and I guess it shows how little I know, the county actually has to approve, has to be on board with this. Is that true?
Well, the towns would do it, the school, and then the county, but you should really have all three.
Everybody, yeah.
Yeah, otherwise we'd have different sliding scales to work with, and different exemption codes, and it would be very difficult, so.
So, I'm gonna bring it up at the next supervisors meeting, and see, and as a matter of fact, I think you've been asked to come and speak to that.
Like Andy.
I have nothing else. Council comment, I want to get John on the road tonight. You don't want to take a motel room tonight, do you?
No, take your time.
Council comment?
Yeah, I'd like to make a few comments here. Monday afternoon, I went down to an open house at the compressor station down in Slate Hill between Port Jervis and Middletown. I'll tell you what, it's one squared away outfit. Talk about noise. Well, there was a lot of lack of it. Went through the building, they gave me a grand tour. I stood a distance between myself and Ed from the compressor itself. Now, you get in that building, you need hearing protection. Compressor is, it's quite an impressive unit. On the edge of the building, before they opened the door to it, I could converse with my host in just normal tones. You heard a little sound. The walls have got to be at least 10 inches thick of acoustical insulation. It's at the gate, I had the decibel meter, and at the gate, the lowest setting on the decibel meter was 60, and it had plus or minus 10. And it just barely bounced off the 50 mark. At the road, you didn't hear it at all. Absolutely quiet. Absolutely
How
quiet.
far was the building from the fence?
Probably a couple hundred feet, at least 200 feet. And it was really an impressive operation. I stood right next to the exhausts on the outside of the building. The exhausts were so well insulated from noise, it was just a whisper. They had a huge muffler system on the exhaust. There are 2 compressor units. They're running at top efficiency now. They're boosting pressure by around 250 psi. They're running, going out was 800 and some psi. So they're cranking out full bore, and I'll tell you, I'll have them put a compressor station right next to my house. I got no problems with it. Some of you people who are against this gas drilling ought to pay a visit to some of these compressor stations.
Did
If
you
you
see a
want-
compressor station upstate? Was that the trip you guys took?
Windsor.
No,
Windsor?
that was Windsor.
Was there a compressor station there?
We didn't go there to see the compressor station so much. We did see it while we were there. We went to visit them about their noise ordinance.
I was just wondering if there's any comparison, if you were able to do any comparison between that one and the one you saw
Well,
last week.
we didn't get into
The one
first
up in Windsor, we didn't get into. I went down here myself, and they had an open house, a tour, and it was quite an impressive station. It was really I was impressed with it.
We were a very short distance from the pump station up in Windsor, and there was a surprisingly little noise coming from that unit.
I'd say if you guys did.
The tractor was louder than that.
Yeah, the tractor that
was
Yeah.
much
yeah.
louder than
In
that.
fact, when I
Could
was
see it
at the
mean.
gate, there were people, some of the guys were leaving from work, and I had this meter here. And this is here, it was a fella that took me through it. I said, here, I want to show you something. Turn the engine off on your car. Because traffic going by on the road, and the road was probably at least 100 yards or more from the road. And at the gate, a car idling there was far louder than the compressor station. And right at the door, entering where the compressors were, I could easily talk to Harold in the tone that we're talking now. Now, once you open the door and went in, it screamed inside.
Different
It was
story.
loud. It was a different thing. And the compressor itself.
They wear ear protection inside?
Yeah, they gave us ear protection and whatnot. And, but the compressor itself really is small. I was surprised how small that is and how much power, several thousand horsepower. And the compressor is a gas turbine. The effluent going out the stack, you don't see anything. The only thing you can see is if you look up at the sky and the effluent, you can see the mirage coming out of the stack. That's it.
I was gonna ask if you hear of any other open houses to like
It would be
maybe
good.
let Tess know and she could get all the board members emailed.
Good to
And
have
I
a
can
lot of
help
people go.
pass it around,
This was
yeah.
kind of a spur of the moment.
Yeah, this thing, I didn't have a chance to go either, but, I think that we can probably get one arranged. How long did they think, did you ask about Long Eddie?
Yeah, I asked them about Long Eddie, when they were, what progress they were doing on there. I think they're waiting for some kind of permit or something. They're hoping to get started on that in a couple weeks.
This is the Hungry Hill.
Yeah, yep, right in the town of Hancock.
You know,
Their time frame, they started last October. They got the building up before the weather really hit. so they were able to work inside easy. And they were going in low power tests and whatnot, starting it to run 6 or 7 months after they started it. So things progressed very quickly. Roads going into it, nothing's torn up. It's a wonderful. They had some. I would guesstimate the nearest house, which I kind of saw through the trees there, the roof, maybe 2 or 3 football fields away. I didn't talk to the residents or anything, so and there wasn't much. They have. I can't. My memory's so bad. They have 50 or some acres there that the original owner was supposed to develop. Well, now it's natural surroundings. You know, it's trees, flowers, deer, game. You know, nothing's disturbed.
Is that in the town of Dearborn?
I think it's Greenville.
I couldn't tell you. It was, I
I'm
passed through.
pretty sure it's Greenville. I mean, that's what they say in the newspaper.
I passed through, I went down Route 6, Slate Hill,
Yeah.
and it's 5 miles from Slate Hill, something like that.
Do you know that the town of Greenville has, in their zoning ordinance, a section relating to compressor stations similar to the one where they're?
I haven't talked. I
Do
know
they?
they didn't.
Okay.
They had nothing in there.
I have no idea.
You know, in all this conversation about a compressor station, as far as I can see, there's absolutely no possibility of a compressor station coming here because they got one in Long Heading, they got one in Greenville. And why would they spend $35 million?
Yeah.
And there's another question. Someone said some months ago, well, why would anybody want to have a compressor station? Well, a $35 million rateable is one reason. The benefits to from a tax perspective would be significant. But I mean, that's kind of, it's all pie in the sky now because you know, unfortunately, it's somewhere else.
Actually, I believe this compressor station going in here in the town of Hancock, because the Sullivan West School District does go into Hancock, we will see some financial benefits when that comes to fruition.
Right, it's in the Solomon School.
Yeah. So we get the school tax and
I don't know
Hancock
what the
gets
numbers
other.
are, but we will see some benefits from that.
Well, it's still possible that if gas drilling ever happened here, that there could be compressor stations here. The compressor station we went to in Windsor was not on the Millennium Pipeline. It was connecting, it was a feeder for the feeder lines, yes.
Yeah, it was, but it was Millennium and another pipeline, I
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was connecting to Millennium, but it was pumping up, it was increasing the pressure to get into the Millennium pipelines.
Yeah. Okay, any other business, any other comments from the board? What I would like to do is, I might ask for a motion to appoint Renee as a new term assessor.
I will do that.
Second.
Okay, have you got that?
All in favor?
Aye. You got who the?
It's a 6-year term.
You think? It is a 6-year term.
Got second thoughts?
Can I get a resolution to accept the abstract?
So move.
Second.
You got that, Tess? All those in favor?
Aye.
Right along.
Okay, now, our last guest of the board,
Pay the bill.
and we have been waiting because we're all hungry. I'd like to introduce John Wallman from ORPS. We call it ORPS, the New York State Office of Real Property Services. And he's got information regarding the basic STAR and re-enrollment.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the board for allowing some time for this presentation this evening. The reason that I'm here tonight is there has been some legislation passed that affects the basic STAR exemption. And just by way of a brief review, STAR is an exemption. It's the only property tax exemption that's actually offered by New York State, and it's intended to help provide relief for the school tax. There's two versions of it. There's the basic STAR, which essentially is available to anyone so long as you own your property and it's your primary residence. And the other component that was added to that about 3 years ago is that the resident owners and spouses cannot make more than $500,000. So before that point, there was no income limit. And then there's also an enhanced STAR, which essentially is for middle-income seniors. Now this program, this registration program, affects everyone who has been receiving the basic STAR exemption for 2013. And essentially, if you've gotten basic STAR in 2013, on the 2013 assessment roll, you're going to be asked to re-register in order for you to keep getting this exemption for 2014. The reason, well, the next slide actually goes into it, but we'll get to this now. The reason that we're going through this program is there is a concern that since this program has been in effect, which was the late 90s, there potentially may be a number of folks who are getting the exemption inappropriately or perhaps shouldn't be getting it at all. And we'll talk about some of the requirements as we talk about how you go about re-registering. There are about 2.6 million folks across New York State who get basic STAR. In the town of Delaware, based on your 2012 roll, there are about 467 people and getting it, and throughout Sullivan County, there's well over 12,000 folks who get the basic STAR. So effectively, this means that if they're getting it, their property is their primary residence, they live there, and so on and so forth, and thus this exemption gives them some benefit towards their school tax. Typically, the dollar benefit, the tax dollar benefit for basic STAR is somewhere between $500 to $700, depending on the town you're in and the particular school district that you're in. So the other thing I want to point out here is you heard me mention the enhanced STAR, which is for middle-income seniors. This registration program does not affect anyone who's getting enhanced STAR. If you are receiving enhanced STAR, there has always been a requirement that you must reapply for that each year, which you do either to the assessor's office by way of a paper application, or there's a program known as income verification through the Department of Tax and Finance. So if you've received enhanced STAR and you sign up for income verification, the department does the checking on the income threshold, because there is a much lower income threshold than for the basic. For 2014, that'll be $81,900, so that effectively the department will do that, and the recipient does not have to go through the process of submitting paperwork each and every year. So with that, and I promise this won't be more than about 10 or 15 minutes. I won't belabor this. Well, all right, we already touched on this. This is essentially the rationale for why this program is in effect. I'm not going to dwell on this too long. Effectively, everyone who received basic STAR for 2013, based on the assessment rolls that are filed, will be getting a letter from the Department of Tax and Finance. And let me take this moment to stress that this re-registration program is only available through the Department of Tax and Finance. Everyone who's got basic STAR at some point applied to the local assessor's office using a traditional paper application. For 2014, and again, this is for folks who have been getting this exemption for 2013, you cannot go through your assessor's office. You can only register through the Department of Tax and Finance in one of two ways. There are letters that are in the process of being mailed this week. They started going out on Monday the 9th. I don't know if anyone has gotten the letter, so, oh, okay, a couple of people, terrific. So the letters that started going out the 9th were targeted for the mid-Hudson Valley counties, including Sullivan. And, you know, again, depending on when the letters happen to go out, how your postal route works, I would say that certainly everyone in Sullivan should receive these letters by certainly the end of next week, at the outside. This letter is going to contain what's known as a STAR code, and it's simply a numeric alphabetic code that you will use to go, if you choose to do it this way, to go to the Department of Tax and Finance's website, where there is an application by which you can register. The other way you can register besides doing this directly on the website is to call the number you see on the screen, 518-457-2036. That number will go to the department's call center, where there are, I think at this point, about 130 folks who are dedicated to this registration process. They can answer any questions you have about the process, and if for some reason you don't feel comfortable doing this yourself through the internet, or if you don't have a computer, they can register you by phone. So either directly through the internet or by phone are the only two ways you can do this. If you have your STAR code, what you're going to do is, and again, this application will be found right on the department's homepage. It's very prominently displayed. It's very easy to find. You're going to enter your STAR code. Actually, the first thing you'll do is you'll enter just a series of numbers just to show the system that it's not machine generated. It's not, some kind of spamming application that's trying to get in. That's really just for security. You'll enter your STAR code. Your STAR code, once that registers, will show your property address. And of course, you just want to take a moment to ensure that this is your property. You don't want to register for a property that's not yours. You're going to be asked to enter the names of all the owners of record, the owners that are on the deed, and any spouses who reside at the property who are not owners. For each of those individuals, you're going to be asked to enter a social security number. Additionally, for each of those individuals, you're going to be asked, is this property that individual's primary residence? Yes or no? You're also going to be asked, for each of these individuals, does this person own property outside of New York State that's receiving a residency-based exemption? And the best example of that I can think of is the state of Florida, which offers folks what's known as a homestead exemption. The reason this question is asked is one of the tenets of STAR is that the property for which you receive the exemption is your primary residence. So if you're getting a primary STAR on a property in New York, but for the sake of argument, you also own a property in Florida for which you receive a homestead exemption, you're basically saying that each of these properties is your primary residence. And I think, as everyone would agree, you can only have one primary residence. So this is part of the effort to weed out people who potentially might be receiving STAR and perhaps shouldn't. If, for the sake of argument, you do own property outside of the state for which you're getting a residency-based exemption, you're going to be asked to provide that address. Then, also, as I mentioned before, about 3 years ago, there was an income component added to Basic STAR. Up to that point, it didn't matter what your income was. If you owned the property and it was your primary residence, you would receive Basic STAR. About 3 years ago, that was changed, so if the combined adjusted gross income of the owners residing at the property and the spouses residing at the property, even if they're not owners, if that was more than $500,000, you were no longer eligible to get STAR. So there is a question to that effect as part of this process. The income standard for STAR looks at income from 2 years prior. So since this is a registration for 2014, income's going to be based on 2012. The last thing you're going to be asked to do is just to provide some contact information, a phone number, and an email address. You're going to hit submit, which simply says that what you've entered is correct, and that's it. You're going to be done. It's very simple. It really only takes 5 minutes. Unless you have a tremendous number of owners and spouses, it's really not going to take you more than 5 minutes. Or hypothetically, if you don't remember someone's social security number. The other thing that I'll point out is when you're done...
You have 3 wives.
Not in New York State.
I'm sure don't have 500,000.
You may not want to brag about that. So the other thing that I'll just point out, in going through this process online, you're also going to get on screen a confirmation number. It's approximately a 20-digit number which you either want to print out or copy down. because that's simply your documentation that you've completed the registration process. Why is that important? Now we get to the schedule. Letters have been going out in staggered mailings across the state since roughly mid-August. As I mentioned earlier, Sullivan County and surrounding Mid-Hudson counties are getting those letters sometime this week, or they're going out sometime this week, I should say. You should all receive letters by the end of next week. By December 31st of this year, that is the deadline for completing this registration. So there's an ample amount of time to do it. I would certainly say to everybody, and you'll hear me say this again, because it takes such a relatively short amount of time, I'd strongly urge you, do it when you get the letter. If you don't want to do it by the internet, make a phone call, but get it over and done with so there's no issue later. Around December 1st, anyone who has not yet completed the registration will get a follow-up mailing from the department, which will basically say, hey, you know, we haven't heard from you. You have until the end of the year, so you've got about another month. Please make sure you do it. Then what will happen is sometime in January 2014, anyone who has not registered will get a letter that basically says, look, you didn't register. Please be advised that your star exemption is being removed. And there's another slide which I'll go into shortly, but I'll deal with it now just because of the timing. It fits in nicely here, that there will be an appeal process. So if someone hypothetically, oh gee, you know, I misplaced the letter, I forgot to do this, there will still be a way by that appeal process where you can send documentation to the Department of Tax and Finance and you can get that taken care of. If for some reason that appeal is denied, there is a second level of appeal to an entity known as the State Board of Real Property Tax Services. In the end, sometime after March 1st, the assessors will receive a list of those exemptions that are to be removed for 2014. And again, that'll be sometime after taxable status date, but before the tentative roll is filed on May 1st. And, you know, again, it's just a good time to point out that obviously everyone, the department, the governor, the legislature, obviously all your town officials, everyone wants to make sure that if you're eligible to receive Basic Star, you receive it. So, and that's one of the reasons why we're here tonight. The department is doing a lot of outreach like this, and I specifically picked the town of Delaware because you have someone as civic-minded as Isaac who tapes this and puts it up, because very few meetings are televised, so we thought this was a great opportunity, and thank you again to Isaac for doing that. Again, this speaks to the appeal process. The only other point I want to stress on this is that anyone who looks to re-register or who looks to appeal the decision cannot do that through the assessor's office. This is strictly through the Department of Tax and Finance. So again, you can only do this through the department's website or by calling the call center at 518-457-2036. The only thing your assessors can do is direct you to either the website or the call center. And if your exemption happens to be denied, unlike other years, you cannot appeal this to the local Board of Assessment Review. It can only be to DTF or through the State Board of Real Property Tax Services. And finally, in the event that you misplace or for some reason just don't get your letter, the website has an application known as Lookup, where if you enter a few basic pieces of information, your county, the township, not necessarily your mailing address, but the township in which your property is located, first name, last name, street number, street name, and zip code, it will return your property, and by virtue of finding that, you will have your star code, and you can go directly into the application function. So again, not having the letter is not an impediment to registering. And if you don't feel comfortable using the lookup code, once again, you can call 518-457-2036, and the folks in the call center can recover that for you and help you do the registration right by phone.
Would that code be on your tax bill?
No.
No.
It isn't.
No. No, it's something completely unique just to this registration process. And, all right, I've kind of hit on this already. The reason we're having this discussion tonight is simply part of the department's outreach just to try to increase public awareness to the greatest extent, to make sure that everybody who's getting it registers and continues getting it. So finally, the only other iteration of STAR for 2014 that I do want to touch on would be those limited instances where the assessor's office can process a STAR application for 2014. If you are a new property owner in the town, let's say that you purchase a property this fall, January, February, you're a new homeowner, because you would be a first-time applicant for that property, in that instance, you would get the traditional paper application, you would fill it out, and you would bring it to the assessor's office no later than March 1st, 2014. Taxable status date is always important for any exemption application. If you miss March 1st, then you have to wait till the following year. So for any new property owners out there in the town, make sure you get a hold of the paper application either through the assessor's office or through the department's website, and make sure you submit that no later than March 1st, 2014. And of course, as I mentioned, the assessor's office will still process any renewals of the enhanced STAR exemption. Now, what will happen, and with this will be done, for folks who newly apply or who are applying for STAR for the first time for 2014, once the department receives the 2014 assessment rolls, brand new applicants for STAR will be identified, and they will be contacted to register in the same way that everyone who has STAR for 2013 will do. And this will go on in subsequent years as well. So the good news here is that we are very hopeful that with this process there would not be a need for another statewide registration. So again, just in summary, it's simple. Do it as soon as you can so you don't forget. You have until the end of the calendar year, but don't wait. My mother always said to delay may mean to forget. And again, you can do it by visiting the website or calling that phone number, 518-457-2036. And with that, thank you very much for your time and attention. And, sir.
I assume you're open for questions.
Oh, yeah. As long as the board is okay with that.
Oh, yeah, sure. Going back to the question that they have to answer about getting an exemption in another state.
Yes.
Doesn't say anything about getting another exemption in this state.
That's true. However, if someone is getting another STAR exemption in this state, the department will be taking this database and they will be doing various kinds of cross-checks. So for instance, if someone, let's say I hypothetically apply for STAR in one town, I have a vacation home upstate, I go and apply. If I'm entering my social security number twice, that's going to be caught. Because again, you can't have more than one. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
To qualify for the STAR exemption, it has to be your primary residence.
That's correct. That is correct. Yeah, and
because I'm a real estate broker, and there's a lot of second home people who are double dipping. No.
And I think it's fair to say that's a primary reason why this statewide registration is being conducted. I don't know that anyone really has a good sense as to the extent of it, but clearly people who shouldn't be getting the exemption shouldn't be getting it, or people who deserve to get it should only be getting it on their primary residence. And that's what this is intended to resolve.
Now, if they live in an apartment in the city, and they buy a property up here, they still qualify for it as saying that this is their primary residence, even though the city
If
is
they
their primary?
own if they're renting, this would be their primary.
Well,
Right.
see, there again, you can only have one primary residence. I can rent an apartment and I can live there, 9-10 months out of the year and go to a home I own for only 2 months. I would submit that because I'm spending more than 6 months in the apartment, that would be considered my primary residence.
I agree, but there's no way, since this is being done through taxation and finance, right?
Right.
I thought that the object of this was that they checked where they file their tax return, had to match where their the address they put on their tax return as their primary residence had to match what they put on the STAR application as their primary residence. That's what I had heard when the legislation first came out.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest with you, I know that the department is investigating a variety of databases against which to cross-reference this information. I don't know specifically which ones, but they are aware that those sorts of issues exist, and I'm pretty confident that they will be looking at databases that will allow them to identify those kinds of situations. I don't know the specific databases offhand.
John, you mentioned signing up for income verification.
Right.
What did you mean? Is that what this is, this registration?
Yeah, let me clarify that. The answer is no. If someone applies for the enhanced STAR exemption, which they do by a paper form to the assessor's office, there's an additional piece of paperwork that, if they so choose, and this is completely voluntary, they can choose to sign up for what's known as the income verification program. Essentially, they have to provide some social security number information of the owners, and again, any resident spouses who may not be owners. The assessor takes that information and enters it through a secure portion of the assessment community portal through the DTF website. When that entry is made, the department then takes over the income verification. So each year, the department will check the income and provide information back to the assessor's office. Do they qualify under the existing threshold? So once they, typically people would choose to do that when they initially apply. Because there's nothing to obligate them to do that, they could choose to renew by paper for a few years, and then, maybe this would be easier for me if I take advantage of this. From my perspective, it saves time and effort because the enhanced recipient no longer has to submit that paperwork each year, because by their initial acceptance, they've already demonstrated that they own the property and it's their primary residence. So it's really only the income threshold that's being checked from year to year. And Virginia, I think you want to add to that.
I do. It's only relevant for those people who file income tax.
Yeah.
Just to let everybody know, that if you're not filing, the income verification program is not going to work.
Yeah, and that's fair.
You mentioned.
How can you not file?
There are plenty of elderly people that no longer file income tax.
My dad didn't.
Yeah.
You mentioned 400 households in Delaware. That seemed low for 400 homeowners with less than 500,000.
In the town of Delaware, based on the 2012 roll, I took a look at our MuniPro before I came in this evening. On the 2012 roll, it showed about 467 property owners in the town of Delaware getting basic STAR.
That doesn't count enhanced or the senior citizens.
Right.
So there's a lot of enhanced also?
Yes.
Right.
So you're comfortable with those numbers that he's saying? That most of the people that are qualified are getting it in our town? Okay. I just wondered if this was like a get out the vote kind of thing, or get out the STAR, we need to
Well, I think to some
educate
degree
people.
this is, since this is new registration.
Yeah, but I just
I mean,
wondered,
this
there's a
is-
lot of people that weren't getting it that
No,
should.
no. Different exemptions that get.
And this gentleman, you're asking the distinction between the basic and the enhanced?
Yeah.
Yeah. The basic really is for anyone. There is no age requirement. You simply have to own the property, have it be your primary residence, and the resident owners and spouses can't make more than $500,000. For the enhanced STAR, you have to be 65, or if it's a married couple, one spouse has to be at least 65, the other has to be 62. Of course, it has to be your primary residence. And for 2014, the income threshold, the combined income can't be more than $81,900. And that income generally goes up a little each year based on cost of living adjustments.
I was talking to somebody yesterday who just didn't get their letter, but they went online. It was very easy for them to sign up online without having a letter.
Glad to hear that. Thank
2
you.
minutes,
Yeah.
really.
I did that today, as I told you before, and I had lost the code number.
Oh,
But it was easy online because you could find the code number. There's a place in there where you can put in information. like you said, the name, the town, or this county, and all that, and it comes up, and the first thing you know, the address shows up, and you verify it's the same address that you were talking about, and the code's right there.
Yeah.
And you, from that point, you can just go right in and fill it out. So it is, I thought it was very, very well set up, very well done.
Thank you.
If somebody signs up for the Basic Star and later on determines that they would have been eligible for the Enhanced Star, can they still do that, or what?
Absolutely, yes. If you register or re-register for Basic Star, and you determine or you think you're going to be eligible for the Enhanced for 2014, what you would then want to do is get the application form, turn that in with the documentation to the assessor's office no later than March 1st, 2014, and if the assessor's review shows you to be eligible, you will get the Enhanced Star. You won't end up getting the Basic.
What was the threshold, the income threshold?
For 2014, for the Enhanced, the maximum income is $81,900.
It's 2012 and
That's right, based on 2012 income.
And the Advanced Star, people that are in the Advanced Star don't have to worry about any of this.
Yeah, they do not have to go through this process. They have been annually reapplying one way or the other, whether through paper documentation to Renee in Virginia, or having done that once and then choosing to enter the income verification program.
Right.
So they should actually not be receiving those letters. If they were on the books for 2013 for an Enhanced Star, they should not get one of these letters.
Is that your state adjusted gross income or your federal adjusted gross income?
Federal adjusted gross income.
John, you're gonna be around just, at least while people are eating the
Oh,
cookies.
absolutely,
So we
sure.
could ask some other questions.
Absolutely, and in fact, if anybody wanted to register now, if we have an internet connection, we can do that here, and if not, Renee volunteered the use of the computer in the assessor's office.
Thank you, John.
Thank you
Good
very
job.
much. Thanks for allowing this.
As usual, very good job. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, we open the meeting up to public comment. Anybody have any? Everybody's welcome.
I make a motion.
Okay. You move to adjourn?
Second.
Second. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And thank you again, John.
Yeah, no, thank